Alright, I got a story for you. This is my story of me and weed. Okay, for starters, weed and I, the lovely cannabis, I and weed, we do not get along at all. It is not my thing, it never has been, and I'm not anyone who's high and mighty, who's like, I should do that. It's just, it has never, ever, ever worked out for me. And I'm okay with that. But it all started way back in the day. The year is whatever year it was when I was 16. And I am going to my cousin's birthday in a couple of days. And I got this friend who's a stoner. He's a fellow 16-year-old. He's got dreadlocks. And I think at this point, I'm a sophomore in high school. I've drank a little bit of alcohol. I've never smoked weed. And I remember I get this kid, and he's a stoner, and I'm like, hey, can you get me weed? And he's like, yeah. Like, he's the kid who sells it. And we've bonded over the past month. So now he's my friend, this kid who sells weed. And so I go to his house, and for whatever reason, I have one beer on me in my truck, and it fits perfectly where my tire iron goes in my truck, and it like locks in, like comes with this, I think it was a 1992 Sierra, and the tire iron has a little box, and then you like screw it down over the tire iron, and there's just enough room for one single beer, and I got it in there, and I got it locked down, hidden. I'm like, got a beer in there. And so I go to this kid's house, and that's for later. So I'm at this kid's house, and I'm like, alright, it's my cousin's 16th birthday. I'm now 16. Alright, give me some weed. And so he's like, alright, I'll get you weed. And he's like, oh, it'll be like $5 or $10. I'm like, well, I got a 20. And he's like, well, I don't have any change. And I was like, well, you have a computer, and you have, I hope it wasn't LimeWire, but whatever you have songs. Like, could you make me a 13, put 13 songs on a CD, and I'll give this CD to my cousin for his birthday, and I'll give him this bag of weed, and we'll all smoke it for our first time, and we'll finally get the weed experience. And he's like, yeah. So I go to his house, he sets up this CD, gets the songs burning onto the CD, loads up the weed, and then we go on a go-kart ride, golf cart actually. And I remember we flipped it, which should have been an omen. And we flip it, everyone's alright. So then I get the weed, got my beer hidden, got the weed, I got my new CD. I remember it was Bob Marley, and it was like Buffalo Soldier. It was like, Buffalo Soldier from the heart of America. And I'm driving my cousins, and it's like the next town, 2 towns over. So I got a 20-minute drive, and I got the CD, and it's like, Buffalo Soldier from the heart of America, and I got this weed in the back, and I'm listening to Bob Marley. I'm like, we're gonna smoke weed. This is gonna be awesome. I'm 16 years old, and I got another cousin who has smoked weed who's gonna be there, and he's supposed to be the experienced one. And I get there, and my cousin who knows how to smoke weed takes a 12-ounce bottle of Pepsi or bottle of pop, whatever, soda for those of you who aren't from my exact location. So he takes a soda pop, and like he crunches it flat and puts tin foil over the top and pokes a bunch of holes and like burns a hole in the back end and just this janky looking bong Frankenstein's monster thing. And this is his contribution. And I show up to this birthday party, so it's me who hasn't smoked weed, my cousin who just turned 16, it's his birthday, who hasn't smoked weed, and then oh, they claim it's the 16th birthday. I want to say it's the 17th because I have my cousin who's a year younger. This would make him 15. I want to say he's 16 and we're 17. Anyway, so my cousin and his buddy, who are they're both 15, I guess, maybe 16, hopefully 16, and him and his buddy, and we're the two older kids, and by a year, and we've never touched this stuff, and they're hindsight's 2020 looking back, they haven't really touched this stuff either hardly, but to us they were experts and they claim to be experts. And so they get this janky ass bong, and I'm like, all right, and it's go time, and the kid, my cousin whose birthday it is, he's like, no, no, I'm not doing that, like absolutely not, no, I want nothing to do with it. And I was like, I want to try this. Like, this is something I want to do. I've worked hard. I've made a friendship with the local drug dealer from my class. Like, I'm doing this. And he's like, well, I'm not. And I was like, well, it's your birthday. I was like, you know what? I got a beer in my truck. It's like, all right, we're going to smoke weed and you're going to drink my one beer in my truck. And he's like, yeah. Alright, that sounds good. Oh, this is cool. So I go out and I unfasten my tire iron and I open it up and I get my one beer out of there. And then I got the weed stashed in there. And I come out and they got the little bong. And I get the bong and we give it to my cousin. He goes upstairs into his room and he puts it under a stack of clothes. Like he's got a pile of pants and he puts it all under there. And then we're like, all right, we're going to do it later. But right now, we're going to go play. So we head out and we go start making forts. Yeah, that's how old we were. We were making forts. We're out there for hours just having a blast when one of my cousin's sister, who's like 3 years younger or so, and at this point in my life, it's still a mystery how this happened, but one of them had to have told on us because we were bragging about it in front of them. But to this day, they will deny. They claim my uncle found it on his own. They claim my uncle wandered up in my cousin's room and started digging through his fresh laundry that's all folded up nicely for him to wear over the week and found this one beer, bag of weed, and just janky bong. And either way, whatever happened, he just randomly finds it. And they tell us, and they're like, yeah, our uncle found it. And it's just like everyone's face just goes pale. You know, we're 16, we're so young, 15. And we're like, all right, like we gotta go up. So we get up to the house and we're standing outside the garage and it's like we gotta go through this door and confront this. And I remember I was like, okay, like we did this. And I remember the cousin who was younger with his friend who were the experts who made the bong. They're like, we didn't do this. Like, we had no part in this. And my cousin who was my age who had a birthday was like, hey, I told you from the beginning I wanted nothing to fucking do with this. I remember looking around and being like just the worst feeling ever. Like, this is 100% on me right now. And I was like, fuck. And I was like, all right, you know what? I did this. You're right, 100%. I'm gonna march in there and I'm gonna take my lickings. I'm just gonna do it. Like, it's my fault. Like, don't worry about it. And puff my chest out and I'm gonna take it. And so I go in there and my uncle looks at everyone and he's like, you know, it was a happy birthday party and he's like, you all have to go home. Like, like we found this stuff. You all have to go home. And so they call the younger cousin and his best friend. And his mom comes and picks him up. And they call my mom. And I remember my mom, I don't know if she swore, I hope she didn't. But in my mind's eye, I swear I remember being on the phone and just hearing my mom's voice saying, "Don't fucking come home," when she heard, and just being like, "What did I do?" And so I was like, just completely distraught, and like being kicked out of my uncle's house, and yet my mom, who was my uncle's sister, being like, "You can't come home. It's like you have to leave, but you're not allowed to go home." And I'm only 16, and I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? What did I do? And so my uncle was like, without hesitation, was like, well, then you have to stay here. Like, if your mom's not gonna take you, then you're staying here, but we got your stuff. And so I ended up going with my cousin, who was one of my best friends, and who I always hung out at anyway, and basically doing what I would have normally done when I went over there. Is just I went downstairs and played video games. But this time I was scared shitless and with tears in my eyes and just completely distraught and just the worst thing ever. And I remember my aunt, my uncle's wife, came home from work and she comes down and she looks like she's like giggling. And now, as an adult, I understand that my aunt and my uncle were pretty big partiers when they were in high school and growing up. And they've done everything. So when they saw weed, they weren't like this is heroin. Like, that wasn't their thought. They were just being adults punishing kids. Like, they thought like she saw how distraught I was and how just like completely embarrassed and completely just like I'm a piece of crap and I'm the worst. And like she was just like couldn't hold her laughter in at how like silly the whole situation was. Because and I I only heard this years later. The weed I had brought was basically oregano. Like, it wasn't weed at all. I had a bag of oregano that this kid gave me. And I guess the bong that my younger cousin, who was the expert, made was just this horrible, just non-functioning, no point to it to someone who has ever knows anything about weed. It was just a complete joke. And then to top it off, we had one beer in the pile. And it was just a complete and utter joke, the whole thing. But at the time, you know, I'm 16 and they weren't going to tell me that. And it was just it was horrible. Horrible. I lost sleep over it. Now it's funny and it's like, yeah, I had a bag of oregano, a non-functional bong, and one single Bud Light. that's how my weed career started off. And I would have preferred to stop there. That's a happy enough ending for me. But fast forward 2 years, now I'm 18. And I go to a party, and I'm probably just graduated, about to graduate. And now I'm with real kids who smoke weed and know what they're doing. And I get in this car, and I smoke with these kids. And this is my very second time with weed. And we go, and I get inside, and I remember I sit in this couch, and I'm like, and I'm looking at everyone, and it's like all of a sudden I go into my own world, and it's like there's a whole party, and I'm inside myself. And it's 11 years ago, and I still remember this. There's a kid trying to talk to me. He's like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, nice to meet you, whatever." And normally, like nice guy, cool guy talking to me. Like, I'll talk back. Like, love meeting new people. But I remember I had an inner monologue, and it was a distinct voice inside my head. It was going, "Why is this person talking to me?" And I remember just staring at the person as he's talking, like he's like da 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 da, and I'm just going like, uh, uh, uh. But inside, I have a very, very strong voice going, "Why is this person talking to me? Why? Why are you talking to me? I don't want to talk to you. Why?" And that's the voice inside my head, but I'm just nodding, going, and he's like, and he was just happy and like laughing and joking along, and I don't know what I tapped into, but I wish I could tap into that in normal conversations, because it would never be awkward. And I remember looking over at everyone who was drinking, like everyone normally in the normal way we would party as kids, and it was like, I remember they were all cheering, and they said they were doing the cheer, and it was like, "Here's to you, here's to me. If we should ever disagree, F you, here's to me." And they're all drinking, they're laughing, they're going on, and I was just sitting there like, and my cousin who had invited me to this party was like, "Hey, come over here." And I remember looking at him being like, "I can't walk. Like, I can't walk over to you." And just sitting on this couch and being like, "You're having so much fun, and I'm here, and like, this sucks. And like, I don't want to be here right now. I want to be with you guys partying, but I don't want to be here at all." But so like, I wish I would have just gone the normal way and just partied the normal way instead of doing this. But so eventually I discover I can in fact walk. And so I walk over. And I remember the other kids that normally smoke were there. And the kid goes like, I'm sitting down at the table with that. Now I'm around everyone. I look at this kid, and like, this is like weird and not a weed thing. I don't know what this was, but he like looks. It was like a funhouse mirror. Like, he looked, and it was like this part of his face was like zoomed in. It was like, like right here was all zoomed in. Like, it was just like his face was deformed, and wherever you looked, like, changed shapes, like almost like a funhouse mirror. And I remember he looked like this, and I was like, "You look like a monkey." And he looked at me, and he looked down and got all sad and was like, got all frowny. And that's about all I remember. But the next day, I remember talking to these kids, and they smoked all the time, and they're like, "That wasn't normal." They're like, "Something was wrong with all of us." He's like, "I had mood swings, and like I had all these other things that like we smoke all the time, and this doesn't have, like, that was laced with something." And that was just, not normal. So I was like, "Oh, great. now my second weed experience is the weed was laced with something. And it was a horrible experience, and I had no fun. So then it was, like, over the years, I've, I remember one time I was at a party somewhere else, and they were smoking, and I was like, alright, like, every couple of years, I'm like, I'm gonna try it. Like, I'm gonna do this. Like, it's never worked out for me, and this is gonna be my time. I'll try it. And I remember I was at a party, and I did it, but we had already been partying beforehand, and I got extremely sick, and like I was about to throw up and just felt horrible. Like it was just spinning and just horrible. And the party ended, the night ended early. I went in and I laid on the person's couch and tried not to throw up until, I don't know if I was there till morning or someone picked me up. I can't remember. But then it was, I can't remember ever doing it and having a good time until probably since I moved into the new house. One of my roommates is big on, some of my brother's friends are big on weed over drinking. And I told them these stories, and they're like, well, like, you tried the wrong stuff. Like, you gotta try the right stuff. And then there was another night where I was partying beforehand, and that's probably what gave me the courage to be like, all right, you're Mr. Hotshot. What's the right stuff? And so I smoked with these kids, and like it sent me into like all I can describe is like blackness, just like laid on the couch and just dark and just like I was in a hole, and it was just bad, and I was like, this is horrible or whatever, and it was bad. And then probably 1 month ago, I looked at my roommate and I was like, all right, I'm completely sober. Like, it's the beginning of the night. We're gonna watch a comedy movie. Everyone always talks about how they'll smoke weed and just laugh and like it makes everything funnier. It's like, all right, hit me. Let's go do it. And I was like, all right. And I want to be sober because I want to try it and give it a fair chance. So I go out there and I take this, just whatever, I take a huge hit. And then I come in and I sit down, and it's immediately, the only way I can describe it is I go into like this black hole and just like fall in. And it's just horrible. And it's like all of my anxiety, all of everything just comes to the surface, and I'm just laying there like, control it, Brett. Like, hold it in. Like, you're mentally stronger than this. Like, it's just weed, no big deal. Like, everything you got, just hold in the panic attacks and just keep yourself together while you're inside this black hole. And I'm sitting in there, and it's just like, oh, it's the worst. And the movie's playing, and I can't even tell what's going on. And I'm just sitting there, just like, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, counting down the seconds. Like, this is just the worst thing in the world. And at one point, I have to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, all right, like, let's go to the bathroom. So I get up and I go to the bathroom. I'm standing over the toilet and I'm peeing, and I can feel myself start to black out. Like I'm about to pass out and fall on the ground and just collapse. And I don't know if you know what it's like to cut off your pee midstream, but it's horrible. And I did it. I was like, clench it in. And then, like, I gotta get back to the couch and lay down. And I remember, like stumbling back for the couch, but like it's a 15-foot journey from the pisser to the couch, and I gotta pass my brother and everyone who's like staring at me, like everyone's all concerned, which doesn't make it better. And so I'm going to the couch and I'm like, hey, like, not to panic anyone or anything, but I might be about to pass out. And then like go over and just fall over the armchair and lay back on the couch. And once I'm down and I'm laying on my back, I can feel myself start coming back too. And like, okay, I'm not gonna pass out. And just like, I don't know, the extra blood flow of trying to stand up or whatever. And then so another half hour, an hour goes by, and my brother was supposed to go out that night, and he had smoked with me. And we're sitting on the couch, and he looks at me. And the next day, he tells me, he told me this to try to calm me down, but it had the opposite effect. He looks at me and he goes, he's like, hey, I, it's alright, I don't feel it anymore. Like, I'm completely sober. And really, in hindsight, he was still completely high as a kite, but he was trying to tell me and get the point across to me that to try and calm me down that I'm gonna be sober really quick. Like it's not gonna last much longer. I'm almost through it. But I took it as holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. You're not high anymore. Why am I still high? What is wrong? What is wrong with me that I am still high when I'm not supposed to be high anymore and I'm still completely at the maximum amount of highness I could ever be and tripping balls and I can't stand up because I pass out. And that was my last experience and probably the last experience for the rest of my life, which is alright because I don't need it. There's nothing about it I need, and I'm completely fine. And alcohol's more of a drug than I should be using as it is, and it's probably worse. But neither would be the best. So if I just take one and not the other, that's alright too. But that's my experience with cannabis and weed. Wasn't pleasant for me, but I understand what people do, and if it's alright for other people, that's cool. I don't have a problem with it. I just have a problem with it for me. And yeah. It's a interesting journey I went down just to find out that it's always been the worst thing for me. The worst luck ever. It's alright though. I don't know. There's worse things.